Welcome, everyone, to Roundy's Rants, Raves, and Reviews. Today, I have with me Katie Chambers, and I'm excited to talk about her work with editing and teaching and writing. And Katie, will you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you covered that with teaching, editing, and writing. I am a former English teacher, and
Yes.
teaching is at my core. Yes, like I thought I was always going to be a teacher. I love teaching, but it just wasn't something I could do with having young kids at home. I did not understand how my colleagues did it.
I
Not
don't
the
know
way
how
I
to.
taught English anyway. I was like constantly giving feedback, and it was detailed feedback. And so I'm like, I had no energy. So I needed something that I could do with kids, and I got into editing and I love it, but teaching is still very much the core of everything that I do and the way that I edit. And so I offer tons of resources. I'm constantly creating resources for authors as well as resources for other editors because I teach editors how to run the admin side with systems and processes because I'm very systematic my person. So that helped out there. And right now, I'm getting ready to launch two books that should be published beginning of February. So I'm excited. They're my first time being on the author side. I've helped nearly 300 books get published in my 9-year career, but this is my first time saying I'm publishing my own books.
That is so exciting. I'm interested to ask you about some things, but first of all, I understand the teaching with kids thing because I don't know how I did it. Because now that they're all moved out, I'm like, okay, I'm done teaching. And I'm like, I haven't figured out how I'm going to be done teaching yet, but I am. So yeah,
Yeah,
you're right. All the papers, all the editing, all the feedback, and everything.
yeah.
But I'm curious because you're going from editing to writing, and that was one of the things that I found very interesting when I published my first book a couple of years ago. Was I was very nervous going into the editing process because here I teach all these kids, and I'm constantly working with everyone else's work. So I'm like, oh dear, what's it going to feel like on my end? And
Yeah.
I was kind of a little nerve wracked, but it was actually one of the most exciting experiences because I heard her saying the same things to me when we were editing. I'm like, I tell my kids this all the time. Of course I know this, but being on that other side and it being that good working relationship, I was lucky to have a good editor. But what has it been like for you first on that edit, being on the writer's side from that side for you?
Yes. Well, I have, because like I said, teacher at heart, I've actually taught, I already had created like this publishing next steps sort of packet where I helped my authors who I edited for. I would kind of give them like tips for every step that comes after editing,
Hmm.
some pros and cons of things to look out for when you're hiring someone, and just how to DIY it if you need to, and what to DIY versus what absolutely not to DIY, and things
Right.
like that. And this was just stuff that I'd heard from other industry professionals,
Hmm.
right? So I'm like, okay, I kind of know some, but you don't know what you don't know. and,
Exactly.
and so my now having been on the journey myself, my next tips packet is so much more robust because I was like, wait a second, I didn't even think about this. And now I've been on this journey myself. So I can help them. I just sent my book out to my interior book designer Friday or Saturday. And then today I realized I totally forgot to put my ISBN numbers on my copyright page.
Oh, you're
And I
kidding.
totally forgot the about the author back matter. I was like, these are basic things. And I so I had to email it I'm like, I hope you haven't started on it since it was the weekend. Here's the real version.
Here's the rest of it. I know
Yeah.
mine, she was really good and she followed up with me on anything that I happened to miss and
Yeah.
had a little checklist for me. But it was like, what was it like for you when you were editing? What was like the hardest part about being edited? And what was like the most exciting part that you found?
I made sure to find good editors. I know a lot, obviously, but I had to find someone who's available, and a lot of the ones that I know really well were not available. But so I kind of had some people I've never, interacted with before apply. But I made sure to get samples from a variety so I could find the style that really aligned with what I was looking for. I kind of had done the developmental editing by myself and with beta readers through the help
Right.
of beta readers because you always need an outside perspective.
Oh, yeah.
If you do your developmental editing 100% by yourself, I'm always a little bit like, eh. But if you do it by yourself in combination with beta readers, you can maybe skip paying a professional developmental editor, but that's still a maybe. Me being an editor myself, I felt confident after I had all that feedback from my beta readers, and they
Right.
were good. They were editors. Like
Yeah.
some of them were editors, some of them were writers. So I got really good
Got
beta
good both
reader
sides. Yeah.
feedback. So
Right.
I was like, all right, I think my developmental editing is covered through my own understanding. And then in copy editing, I kind of went through it with, but I was like, I really don't have time to line edit this in the way I want to line edit this because too close to your work, right? So you don't see what's there.
Our brains fill it
B,
in. Yep.
I know I would sit there and try and fine tune every single sentence because I'm like, I'm going to be judged more harshly because I'm an editor myself. If I have any awkward wording whatsoever or any they're going to be like, she's in bad.
Yep. Exactly.
So I was like, I think it was just too nerve-wracking for me. So I found someone who could just really dive in. And I'm like, she edited the same style I do, which is I'm very hands-on and I just make the changes.
Right.
I make it really easier for you to just accept, reject, like
Just go through and do it. Yep.
just go in there and dig in. And I know she's a good writer, so she can find my awkward sentences. And, I'm like, okay, good. So it was pretty easy because I knew what to look for
Right.
and exactly what I wanted.
Uh-huh.
But it's not always that easy. Like she came back to me and she's, wow, you went through this quickly. I'm like, well, I trusted you. And, you edited the way I do. So it's like simple, accept, reject, not to sit, read comments and try and figure out how to add details
Right.
myself. It was just like, you did it. You improved my language. Thank you.
So you do both sides. You do a developmental content editing as well as proofreading, fine tuning.
So I don't work as a proofreader, but I have members of my team who do.
Gotcha.
I do both developmental editing and copy editing.
Uh-huh.
And my copy editing includes line editing. I don't separate them. I know
Right.
some editors make them separate services.
Mhm.
And when I talk in terms of self-editing, I talk about them at different levels. But when it comes to professional editing, a lot of us just do copy editing and do both line editing and copy editing all in one go. If you want to get technical, line editing is your stylistic changes, your word choices, and your sentence fluency, whereas copy editing is like your grammar, your punctuation, your spelling. But I just do it all and call it copy editing, and a lot of us editors do that.
Well, yeah, because we're English teachers, and that's what we do.
Right. I'm like, I'm not going to fix your comma and not fix your wordy sentence at the same time. Like,
exactly. Fix both of these things. We don't separate them, right? It's just what it is.
Yeah.
So do you prefer one type of editing over the other when you're working with clients? What is your favorite thing to work with?
Well, I would say that I'm a better developmental editor and line editor than I am copy editor, which is why I have an awesome proofreading team. And
Right.
they come at you because I'm like, I'm better. I'm really good. My biggest strength as a nonfiction content editor is I'm really good at rearranging content. Like my brain really quickly picks up on this sentence actually belongs in chapter 2. This paragraph belongs better here. This whole chapter should come before that other chapter. Like I don't have to sit and think very long. Like it just comes to me, the organizational structure. Again, very systematic, organized person. So that is kind of my super strength when it comes to nonfiction. And then when it comes to fiction and nonfiction both, I like that line editing level, that word choice, and that sentence fluency. Because I taught writing, that kind of comes naturally for me. And then when you talk about fiction, that line editing goes into not just the words and sentences, but it goes into like character interiority. Are we feeling connected to the character? And it goes into show rather than tell, and all those sorts of writing craft tools. And because I'm really well read, that kind of comes a little bit more naturally for me too.
Yeah, that's the part I like the most when I'm working with my students is getting into letting them. They don't care about the grammar. They just want to know what. Yeah. So I'm like, they'll just tell me what to fix, and I'm like, fine, here. Yeah, but teaching them how to like character development and get into that storytelling, it's just so much more fun.
Yes.
On that side and helping them develop it and seeing that. I was interested that the sample that you sent me was exactly that. It was like, how have you don't just edit and stuff like this, but you've created like lessons and these things that are going in to helping people craft at the same time, which is definitely a little bit more than an editor side of being.
Yes. Well, I said teacher at heart, right? So that's my upcoming books.
Yay!
I have a self-editing essentials for nonfiction and a self-editing essentials for fiction. And the idea is the nonfiction one has 21 topics, I think, and the fiction 29 or 30. And I break them into passes. So it's, for nonfiction, you've got your content pass, your organization pass, your writing pass and then your technical pass. And then fiction, you have your story pass, your scene pass, your writing pass, and your technical pass. And that writing pass is where I go into both types of writing, craft technique, like deepening your character interiority and show don't tell, as well as words and sentences in general, like better word choice and sentence fluency in general. But so that excerpt that I think I believe I shared with you, the deepen character interiority
Yes.
one.
Yes.
So yeah, so the way, thank you, the way the book is structured is it's a lesson on that topic, and then it's an example of a revision. Here's how this wasn't being adequately applied. Here's a revision of how we could end it. And then I give them a practice exercise to try it themselves, compare it to my answer, and then a checklist of things to now apply to their own manuscript. And the idea is I'm very cognizant of how overwhelming self-editing can be.
Mhm.
There is so much that goes into writing a book. So while I say I have 21 topics in nonfiction and 29 in fiction, I don't want my readers to read all of them. I want them to pick 2 or 3 per topic
Mhm.
and then stop, like not per topic, per pass. So after the story pass, they do their 2 or 3 and then they stop and they apply that 2 and 3 to their manuscript after they read about it.
Mhm.
Then they move on to the scene pass and read about 2 or 3. Stop, apply it to their manuscript. And so my book is not meant to be read cover to cover. It's not a linear, it's a toolbox. This is what I think I need help with. I'm going to learn about this lesson and apply this to my manuscript so that it's manageable, like 2 to 3 topics per pass. You go over your manuscript 4 times, 4 passes, each with 2 topics. Bam, now your book is in a better state to hand over to your editor. You're going to pay a little bit less, if your book comes in cleaner, but the real big bang for buck is you're going to get a better end result. Editors can only take your manuscript so far in the time and budget allotted.
Yeah.
A book can always be improved, always. I could go in and edit my book till the cows come home, right?
Mhm.
Always. But so if I get a manuscript that's given to me at, level 6 or something, I can take that to a 10. But if it comes into me at more like a level 3, well, I'm going to probably get it to a 6, but I can't really get it where you want it to be because I don't have the time and the budget allotted to go in and do everything this book still needs. So,
I love that you've designed it to be that kind of toolbox, so you can just take it and apply it. When I got to that lesson part, I'm like, "Oh, these are good questions. These are questions that I ask my students. These are questions that every person should be asking themselves," but sometimes we forget
yeah.
to do that. And you said mentioned in your things that you also did plays and stuff, and I thought that was so cool because as a theater person as well, I was like, it's like looking at a scene. It's like watching that scene and what do I need to fix? And how do I block this? And how do I
Yes.
make this? And how do I put what's here out here in a way that relates to people? And I've always found that when I can put it in that way for my students or for myself, that it helps me. How did you decide what elements were necessary for authors to really take into this process?
So, having edited for 9 years, I've seen the most common pain point, the most common issues I receive. So that's where I started. I started from making a list of, okay, when I'm editing a nonfiction book, organization is huge, redundancy is huge because they like to repeat themselves. When I'm editing a fiction book, what do I see a lot of? And craft wise, it's a lot of show don't tell and character interiority. When I'm fixing their craft, I'm usually trying to help them go deeper into the character or go deeper into showing. So I started there. And then I just thought, okay, now as a whole, now I've talked about the common problems, but as a whole, what's very important when you're writing a fiction novel? What's very important when you're writing a nonfiction? Well, what's very important in nonfiction is making sure you align your genre expectations. So then I threw that one in there. You want to make sure that if you're writing a self-help book, it meets the certain criteria. Same with a how-to and then when I was thinking about fiction, I thought a lot about point of view and how important that ends up being. And that's not something I fix head hopping. That is something I do, but that's kind of more of at the writing level. But I mean, overall, picking your point of view.
Hmm.
That is something that usually is done before it comes to me. But I'm like, but that's something that can happen at the self-editing stage. So then I brought in things that maybe aren't issues I see, but are important to your book as a whole. And then I did a lot. I researched other editors' blogs and saw what topics they were writing about. And I learned a new one. I didn't know about microtension. And I
Oh,
saw that on someone's blog and I was like, well, then, now that I've learned about that, I'm going to add that into my fiction with self-editing
oh,
of fiction. Because I'm like, this is awesome. I had just never heard that term before.
right.
But yeah,
Microtension. I'm gonna look at that up. Yes. I've never heard of it that way either. So
yeah, I hadn't heard that way. So it's pretty
that's very
interesting.
cool. It's amazing how we think that we know, and I love that we're lifelong learners, even as editors and professionals. That and as an author, that's like our biggest thing is to be able to go out and read and apply new information, hopefully, into it, and that we don't think that we've known it all. What are some things that you've learned over 9 years that have really helped you as an editor and in writing your own book that you didn't think that you needed to know or along the way?
Well, it goes back to that whole you don't know what you don't know. So when I went from English teaching to editing, sure, I had some knowledge base to work from,
Mhm.
but there's a lot more to editing than I ever taught my students in English. So I had to learn all those, those concepts that I'd never even thought about when we're teaching writing versus when we're editing.
Mhm.
And then I discovered there were some rules that, well, put it in air quote, rules that I had been teaching incorrectly that I didn't even know because
Oh,
I had been taught.
what's one of those rules? Now I want to know.
Well, now I gotta remember.
You've unlearned it. You don't know it anymore.
I know, I don't, when did I used to teach? Oh, this one I did know. I do have to say I'm very proud of myself for this one. The not ending a sentence with a preposition, I've always
Mhm.
known as a zombie rule. And I have some students that came to me just like adamant that they could not. And I'm like, No, you can." So
Right. Yeah.
I was glad that I hadn't been taught incorrectly on that one. But I had been taught that you always put a comma before but, even when it's not joining two complete sentences together. And I had this whole little spill I did with my students. I'm like, we always cover our butts, okay, guys? I'm like, I taught them the rule with all the other coordinating conjunctions, but I'm like, no one wants to see your butt. You got to cover that butt. So I
Mhm.
taught them to always put a comma before a butt. And then I'm like, oh,
Maybe not.
JK, you don't need that.
You had one of those grammar Nazi teachers that was like,
I don't remember when I learned it, where I learned it, but I went back to my notes and it was definitely in my notes. So I'm like, I didn't just make this up. Like,
no, yeah,
I had been taught this myself. But yeah, and the editors were like, no, you treat it just like any other coordinating conjunction. I was like,
it's
oh,
the same.
it's
Yeah.
not
Well,
special?
yeah, I had those teachers in school. So I took advanced grammar STU. And so I was like diagramming sentences, pages
I
long
love diagram
sometimes.
sentences.
You too? Yay. Uh, I did that for fun when I was bored in classes because I was always done with my work. So I just had
Yeah.
a book of grammar I was doing. Crazy me. But when I was in college, I would always write that first paper and see with the way that they liked to have things written.
Yeah.
And I did, and then I had one who loved it. I called peppering with commas. So I just put commas everywhere, even though they looked annoying to me and looked horrible. I'm like, just commas everywhere, even for those stupid butts. And then there was the ones who hated, and so I would take out any comment anywhere I could not put in anything, or I could take out. I mean, there's always those different styles too. And you talk about different styles of editors and writing and stuff. How does one go about, especially when you're a new author, finding the right kind of editor for you then, if you don't know what you don't know?
Yeah. Well, partly it comes down to the style, the way that they edit.
Mhm.
Because you do have to get to a point where, and all editors will know this, well, all editors who have the business of calling themselves editors and aren't scammers know this, that the ultimate importance is consistency. So if you choose to never end with a preposition because you think that's a rule, and maybe your editor that you're with does, and you don't realize that that's not actually a rule, they're consistent, it's fine.
Mhm.
So it's going to be applied across the board. It's not going to look, nobody's going to notice.
Right.
But when it comes down to like communication and style, you're going to know that. You're not going to know the grammar. Oh, is this editor better at grammar and actually really knowing the grammar and punctuation rules? Or are they being taught zombie rules and applying them? Are they more prescriptive or descriptive? You might not be able to get into the weeds of that. but you will know, does their style work for me? In that, some editors are more hands on, like myself, where we see the reader as our ultimate client. And so if we find a sentence is wordy or awkward, we'll just go in and change it. And other editors are like, I don't want to touch too much of their precious words. So I'm just going to flag things. And they might just flag, hey, you may consider changing the sentence. It's a bit awkward. I used to originally, when I did sample edits, I'd do both styles. I do, here's a hands-on version and here's more of a comment kind of style version, but everyone picked the hands-on version and I just decided to make that part of my brand. I still leave comments that explain why. So I think that's also, again, my style and not everyone's style. I've had some, now that I have a team that works for me, I've had to hire other editors. And
Awesome.
yes, and I've kind of seen other editors' style, and some of them have been, whoa, why do you have these comments just explaining a change? You know, they and I'm like, well, I only do that at the beginning. So the initial onset will have more comments than later on in the manuscript because they might go, why the heck did you change my precious words? What was wrong with my precious words? So for example, in nonfiction, a lot of times I add in a transition and they might be like, why did she add in this sentence? So I'll explain this transition helps the reader go from point A to B. And then maybe the next 2 or 3 transitions I add, I do the same thing. But then after that, I don't leave a comment anymore because now they understand, oh, she put that in as a transition. Or I'm rewriting their sentence because their sentences were all the same sentence beginning or sentence pattern or sentence length and it got monotonous. The sentence was fine. So they might be like, why'd she change this? It was fine. The sentence by itself was fine. But then in context, you just had lack of fluency because too many sentences in a row had the same beginning pattern or same length. So I'll explain, I changed this to vary the sentence beginnings and increase flow. And I'll make those kind of comments for, like I said, the first few times I make that kind of change. And then after that, I no longer make that comment. I just make the change. But that's so they can make informed decisions. Like,
Right.
I see why. So I tell them in my email back to them, if you agree with the reasoning why I made the change, but not the change itself, reject it, write your own. Because now you know what was wrong and now you can fix
Exactly.
it. And you saw mine as an example. If you liked it, but you want to tweak a few of the wordings, accept it and then tweak a few things here or there, make it your own. I just find it's easier to model in the text, which is why I'm more hands-on than to model in the comment that might say, hey, this is awkward. Consider writing it like this. I just do it right in the text so they can just accept, reject. But again,
Yeah.
there's different styles. And I have had some authors that have come to me and have not hired me specifically because I did more editing than they wanted, right?
Mhm.
My style was more of a heavy editor and they were looking for more of a comment style. Totally fine. Nothing is wrong with either style. People have different preferences. So I am not the right editor. My team are not the right editor for someone who's not looking so much for their words to be touched and looking more for the commentary on the side, just kind of telling them how they can do it themselves. And I do both. I have the comments telling them how, but I'm like, I model it in the context of the story or the nonfiction manuscript itself. So,
I understand that. When I'm editing anything, it's usually the first few times, and then after that, every single time, 'cause it's gonna be the same reasoning.
yeah.
Same. Just
And there's some editors that don't explain their reasoning ever, and that's fine too. That's their style, is that they just make the change, and the only comments they leave are when they're making suggestions for the author to make a change.
Right.
And I'm like, I have all kinds of comments. I got comments suggesting that you make a change, and then I have comments just explaining what my
What
change
what change?
was, you know. But that again, and that's the kind of thing that is a style that an author can look for. You won't necessarily know, did this editor get all the grammar, spelling, punctuation, capitalization stuff? Did they actually fix all the writing craft techniques that were in there? You might not know all that, but you want to know, do I feel comfortable about their style and the way that they approach the manuscript, as well as their communication style in emails with you? Because that relationship is very important.
And I think that's the biggest thing too, is having that relationship with your editor and making sure that you communicate. I know that when I was talking with mine, we spent hours on the phone sometimes,
Yeah.
going through, and she'd go, "And do you see what's wrong here?" She was literally teaching me, like, I'm reading it, I'm like, "Oh," 'cause, again, we fill in those blanks, but she spent the time with me, and then sometimes she would just send, little things, and so we had this kind of balance of that
Yeah.
hands-on, the community. we were very, and she knows I'm a teacher and I edit other people's work all the time and I'm doing all the things.
Mhm.
But when it came to my own work, she was teaching me how to be a writer and to be on that side of the aisle.
Yeah.
And that was, I'd never been on that side of the aisle because no one had ever really taught me that side. They'd always just, teachers I'd never been able to conference with someone. And I've
Yeah.
always conferenced with my students. I've always, you know, talked with them about their writing, but no one's ever done that with me. And it was a very rewarding experience. And I can imagine that if I had not gotten a good editor, how nerve-wracking it could have been and how much
Yeah.
worse it could have been
Yeah.
in that end. So, what are some of the things that you want people and writers and people who are editors and stuff to know about this whole process and maybe what's most important for them to look for in their own stuff as they go forward?
Well, like you just shared with your experience with your editor, you needed that, you wanted that, teacher kind of style that meshed with you. And that was something you hadn't had before and wanted. So you might not have known ahead of time that's what you wanted.
Didn't have a clue.
Right. But when you then maybe saw samples from various editors, you still might not have been able to articulate that, oh, it was her teaching style, but you were able to kind of have a feeling of this style resonated with me for whatever reason. And then as you work with them, maybe now you can articulate, oh, she broke it down and taught me. But I think it might be cliche to say go with your gut, but when you're looking at various editors' work, it's important that you feel confident in what they presented back to you. Now, let me break down what confidence means. Confidence does not mean what they gave back to you made you feel like you were the most amazing writer on the planet because their compliments were everywhere and you're like, oh, I feel confident as a writer.
Mhm.
Confident in that they improved your writing in a way that resonates with you. That's what the kind of confidence you want to have. I think it's very important to seek out multiple editors when you're in the interviewing stage and not just one, because again, you don't know what you don't know. And you might be like, this is great, but you don't have anything to compare it to know if there was something that might have fit you better. With that, I would still say limit it to like 3 to 5 if you have to, because if you go too many, now you got too many choices to choose from, that makes it difficult because no two editors are going to edit a passage the same way ever. But there might be two editors who have the same style. They might have written, modeled the change differently, but they both noticed maybe the same type of changes and they both had the same kind of communication style
Mhm.
and they both had the same kind of editing style. So that's, there's going to be those kind of similarities, but there's not going to be the similarities of exactness, like we edited it the exact same way, which is why you don't want to get too many samples because now you're not just looking at style, you're actually looking at the exact way they did it and getting in the nitty-gritty, and then you can get overwhelmed with, oh, well, was editor A or B's, they have both their style, but was their exact edit better? And it's just overwhelming if you have too many to look at. So 3 to 5 sample edits, or some don't do sample edits, some do discovery calls, whatever way you can kind of learn about their style and kind of get a feel for it. And then you go off of what made me feel confident inside that I'm going to have a good end result after they're done editing. Again, not confident that, oh, I'm the best writer ever because they just told me I'm amazing, but confident that, working with them is going to get me where I want my book to go. And if I have a different opinion on something, are they going to be okay with that? Right? Because I have some authors that don't accept every single one of my suggestions. Totally fine. That's what they're there. They're suggestions. It's a collaboration. It's take what you resonate with, leave what doesn't, ask me questions about what doesn't, but you think, well, this didn't resonate with me, but does it need to change at all? And we just collaborate and we just talk and discuss. So you want to feel like you can push back if you need to, that you're in full control as the author, and that they are there to support and partner with you. And that might mean being harsh, and that might mean being honest, and that might mean touching your precious words, but it means that they're supporting you through that process.
I was just talking with this the other day with our author group over. We were talking about how they asked me, it's like, you have to tell kids that it's not great all the time. How do you do that? And sometimes you're just like, this isn't great. You're like, there's a better way to do this and trying to find those tactful ways, to make that come across. But sometimes say, guys, sometimes I know it's your baby, but we have to cut off the arm.
Yeah.
It's just what it is. So we're going to cut off the arm of the baby. And it horrifies them at the same time, but that gets them laughing and thinking about it. And we have, but it's hard to give harsh criticism or tell someone that what they've written isn't all that wonderful. How have you dealt with that kind of a situation where you like, this isn't great? You handle that kind of a situation.
So if I get a manuscript that comes to me that I feel like really is not ready for editing, then I do tell them. I am upfront with, I don't, I wish you the best of luck. Maybe you can find someone, another editor, but I honestly recommend that you do more self-editing before even looking for an editor. And here's resources. Here are the exact reasons I think you still need to edit to go back to the drawing board, and here are resources to help you. They can take that how they want to. And I'm sure there are some that are just like, fine, I'm not going to hire her. I'm just going to find another editor. And that is fine. There are some I take because they're ready enough for an editor, I guess. But I do know that if they self-edited more, it would have been better. Right? Like that's the whole concept of them coming into me at like a 3 versus coming to me with a manuscript instead of 6.
Right.
I'll take your manuscript for 3, but I'm not going to, the end result is still not something that I'm going to be like praising to the high skies to everyone about. But that's the nice thing about the fact that Amazon doesn't let you write reviews. So that's my little out.
Right.
I can't write reviews for any book I've edited. Right. But if they ask me straight up, they ask me questions, then I am honest about the end result or where the book's headed. Yeah, I'll tell them, I did tell an author recently after I finished the editing, I said, so I did the editing, they made changes, and then I get it back. I always see it again after them. So I just felt like they didn't really apply. They tried to. It wasn't a matter of rejecting. It was a matter of I gave them suggestions, and they tried to apply my suggestions, but they didn't
get all the way there.
Didn't get all the way there. Yeah. So I was honest about, the changes you made. We've got a better manuscript now because of the changes that you've accepted and things, but the suggestions that I had for you weren't really met. And I feel like you agreed with them because you were trying to do them. So let's hop on a call and talk about, what can we do to help you understand how to apply my feedback better. Mm-hmm. And then I did an additional final round. I call it a final round where I don't read the whole manuscript again. I just, what's changed. I just check what's changed and how well they applied the feedback. So I'll be honest, like in that regard, but if they did a decent enough job, then I'm like, all right, that's their book. I mean, it's kind of hard for me to be like, I feel like as an editor, I can't really tell every single client that comes to me exactly, oh, your book still needs XYZ, because everybody could probably, like I said, all books could use improvement. And I have to get it to a good enough state. And if I have to feel their balance too and feel like what their goals are and what their writing level is and their revising level is. And if I don't feel like I could even help them any further, then I did what I could do. I did what I could do. But if I feel like, okay, if I help them a little, if I give them more feedback or we talk this through more, I think I can get them there to a better level, then I will.
Which it brings us back to your books then. So these books then that you've given are to help us as writers to get us to that level and to practice it first too.
Yes.
Not on our precious words, on someone else's precious words.
Yes. That is the main point of my book. So I'm like, oh dear, there are so many books that came to me that I know if they would have just come to me at a better level, what we could have accomplished together. But it came to me what it came to me as, and I just don't feel like it's my place to always tell them, hey, this manuscript could be even better if you would go do XYZ first before you come to me. I'd probably be out of a job because I could say that to everybody. Do you know what I mean? Eventually I have to be like, this work is good enough for me to take. I can actually help you. The ones that I completely turn away are, if they're submitting a novel and it's completely not even written like a novel, it's written like a book report, that I'm just like, there'd be way too much that would need to be done. There would need to be ghost writing done.
Right. Yeah.
At that level. Those are the ones that I kind of say, go back to the drawing board. But if they at least got the structure well enough in place, then I'll take it. But yeah, if they had it if they improved more, they could have gotten it even further. And maybe I should be telling them this, but I'm like, I'd be out of a job if I told everybody you're not ready. Well, not everybody, but you know what I mean? Probably about 40% of the manuscripts that I take probably come to me be lower than a 5 level, where I'm like, oh man, I can only do so much with this.
Right.
But you do what you do. That's your job.
But I think that's the greatest thing is that you're trying to help people improve and even to give them a book where they don't even have to pay for your services to get them from a 3 to a 5 or a 6 first.
Right.
Here's something that can help you and everyone, no matter what type of writer you are, to be able to apply those things and do. And I'm excited to see it. And it's in February, so a month from,
Yes.
yeah, by the time this comes out, it'll be a couple weeks. It'll be perfect timing
Yes.
for this. So, no, I think that is such a beautiful thing because so many people are just gatekeeping, right? Nope, I want the money. I want to just do this. And they would not tell anyone but here you are sharing all the secrets.
Yes, I'm trying because I'm like, I want to help you guys produce better books. That's my end goal here. So if we can get them in a stronger shape to when I get them, awesome. I work with a lot of first-time authors, a lot of first-time authors. So I know that my experience might be different from other editors. Maybe they're getting books coming to them already at that higher level. But because I'm working with a lot of first-time authors, I'm seeing over and over, okay, we got that book from a 3 to a 6, but oh man, if they would have given it to me to 6, what we could have done, right? And ultimately, I'm not sitting there telling them, hey, your book's only a 6, it's not a 10. But because I did what I was hired to do, and that was to improve their book in the time and budget allotted, which is what I believe is the role of the editor. And I was honest in my feedback, and I was honest in what they need to work on. I didn't hold back. But again, I could only do so much in the time budget allotted because I could do even more if I did another round, right? But in their budget, they've got allotted. We usually do. I do a round. They now make revisions, and now I just check what their revisions were and what they changed and make sure they didn't introduce new errors and move from there. But it's just hard. There's so much that goes into writing so much. There's just so much.
There is, and you know both sides of it and understand the feelings on both sides of that too as you go forward. What is the name of well, apparently you've now got a company, not just you out there doing, and where can we find you and where can we find your book when it comes out here and help
Yeah.
ourselves through all of this? That's
So my
awesome.
company is called Beacon Point. And we're all about, helping people shine their light. And so I kind of use a lot of shining and light metaphors in my teaching and my working. But yeah, my company is Beacon Point. I find it at beaconpointservices.org because I couldn't use Beacon Point. It was already taken. So I had to pen a Beacon Point Services in my URL, but my company name is just Beacon Point. And then my books, I have on my website, I have a resources for editors page and a resources for authors page. If you go to the resources for authors page, I have resources for every stage of the journey, some that I've created, some that other industry experts have created and that I've curated. And so it will take you to links to their resources or links to mine. So on there in the self editing section of that resources for authors page, it will link to buying my books. Right now, it links to signing up for my launch team because I've got my book off with my ARC readers and I'm working on getting a few more. My goal is to get 50 reviews during my soft launch before I then announce it to the public. And to do that, I feel like you need 100 launch team members because statistically, probably about 50% will follow through.
Right.
And I'm at 78 for my nonfiction
Mhm.
and 65 for the fiction, I think. So I'm like, I'm not quite to the 100. So I'm still gathering more people in my team, which my soft launch will be January 20th, where it's not announced to the public. It's just now my ARC readers are
Getting it.
writing their reviews on Amazon and getting that ready to go. So
That's very
yeah.
cool. That's awesome that you're giving this. And I love the idea that you're shining your light and you're getting others to shine their light using whatever gifts and tools we each have. Some of us writers, some of us editors, some of us both, some of us teachers, some of us readers. Everyone's got their gifts and talents and
Absolutely.
shining that light through however that means they can. Well, do you have any last messages or things you want to say to our listeners and viewers we and today?
Sure. So I will say I'm anticipating some 1-star reviews on my books for the sole purpose that I used AI to help generate a few of the example exercises.
Mhm.
Everybody has their own opinions on AI.
AI.
It's heavily controversial, and I am aware that many authors and editors are 100% anti. And so just seeing that I used it at any degree, I could see them using, 1-starring it right away. And that is a risk I'm taking because I'm in the camp of there's not black and white. It's not all bad. It's not all good. There's some use cases. So I wanted to kind of model how it could be used effectively.
Mhm.
So I just want to say to authors out there who may not be in the anti-AI camp, and those who you that are totally respect. I respect that you're holding to your values and what you believe, and I have no qualms against that. But for those who may not be quite anti, I just want to let them know that there's ethical and unethical ways to use it, and there's productive and unproductive ways to use it. I have received far too many manuscripts as of late that have been heavily
Mhm.
AI influenced. That would require ghostwriting, excuse me, not editing. But if you know how to effectively prompt it so that the output isn't so AI sounding and your ideas are embedded in there, it can be used effectively, not to wholesale write your whole book. But for example, if you're writing a scene and you're just really struggling to get character interiority into your character, and you're like, I feel like I'm getting there, but I keep getting this direction, this feedback that I would like to know more about the character. If you asked AI, here's my scene. How do you think I could go deeper? What are some suggestions? What would it look like? I don't have a problem with that personally because that's what an editor does. I give you
Right.
suggestions, and sometimes people use my suggestions. They click accept. And they don't need to credit me like, oh, Katie Chambers wrote this one line of my,
Right.
book. So I feel like there's use cases for it where it's okay. Or, nonfiction, if you're like, I just want to make sure I explain my concept fully. Is there any details I'm missing that a beginner would need to know? And I feel like there's ways it can be used as a tool to help you get your book into a great shape, not to write it wholesale or even a lot of it. Like I said, the way I used it was I had it write some of the example exercises. I'm not a novelist myself, so it was hard to write a scene that also doesn't have the principle I'm looking for. Like I want them to be able to edit for it, but also not be so obvious it's like an elementary level answer. Like the answer is so obvious.
Mhm.
Sometimes it took me like 12 iterations with AI to get it right because it was my knowledge guiding it to be
Mhm.
like, nope, that was way too obvious what the problem was. Let's kind of try this situation. Can you put that in there? So that's kind of my last parting little words is, you know what, if you're anti-AI, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. Rad respect for your values and sticking to them. If you're not, just know that there are poor ways to use it and you need to be conscious of how you're using it.
I agree. As a school teacher right now and seeing AI everywhere, it's so hard to know where that line is because I'm like, there's good ways to, I'm like, and they want us to teach the kids ways to use it because it's everywhere. We want them to use it correctly if they're going to use it.
Yes.
But it's so hard to teach where that line
Mhm.
is on things and where we can it, balance those things. I actually am like, yeah, to write a sample piece for them to look at, that's one thing. I mean, we can't all write varying levels of things, and especially
Yeah.
the time that it has for it. But at the same time, agreed, can't be more. I mean, I've got kids that will turn in literally copy and paste it. It just the whole, and then I can sit there and go, "This isn't your work," and I'm showing them 100%. They're like, "But I did it all myself," and I'm like, "No, I love you. Go rewrite this, and if you can rewrite something this good in 45 minutes that matches this, then I'll maybe believe you." But it
Yeah.
never happens,
Well,
right?
and the other thing, a lot of things I think one of one of the ways that I kind of tip on to use it more effectively is you do the kind of the messy drafting and then hand it
Mhm.
to AI to then kind of maybe polish, not get it completely where it's at, but you're feeding it all the ideas.
Mhm,
And now it's not so AI generated sounding
mhm.
anyway, because you've already now fed it the initial writing. Like I do that a lot for my social media posts. Social media posts are a specific type of writing. Can I write them myself? Yes. But it takes me longer. So, because of the type of writing it is. So, I'm like, I will feed 100% all the ideas. I will just, like I'm stream of conscious kind of writing. I'm not worrying about writing correctly or
Mhm.
having good sentence fluency or word choice, or just get all the ideas out there. And then I have it give me a post and then I go in and edit it from there. But I don't sound, it doesn't sound AI with the whole, it's not this, it's this construction or the whole groups of three because I fed it the initial kind of framework. And so it followed that. So I think if you're using it to polish and refine or to maybe write an example, you can use it more effectively than if you're just asking it to do some writing.
And just like anything else out there, it's the tools and how we use them. It's never in and of itself things. It's how we as humans do it.
I'm a I minored in information systems. So I'm like, I'm a technology girl. But I'm just, like I said, I am anticipating those 1-star reviews for the fact that I used AI. And that's a risk I was taking because I'm like, that's another message I want to get out there is there are effective ways to use it. But mostly the main message I want to give is if you are going to use it, here's how you use it effectively because too many are using it poorly. So I wanted to
Oh,
give a
yeah,
good example of how a creative could use it in a creative work
properly.
ethically and productively and from there. But yeah.
That's awesome. I love that you're using all the tools and you're teaching us still, even in this way, something, even if it's not a direct lesson in your book, that you're also teaching us and helping.
Try, yes, to model it. Yes.
Trying to model for us. Teacher modeling. What? We can't get away from it, can we?
Nope.
Well, thank you so much for being on with me. I can't wait to see your books come out as an author myself. I know I'm going to be getting it and using it because I already am like seeing the value in it. So, and everyone, hey, remember to use things properly and seek out the things that you need for yourself in the right ways. Know your love. Have a great
Okay.
time. We'll
Thank
see you
you.
next time. Bye.
Bye.